Every once in a while, I visit the former progressive in me and wonder where things went wrong. Where exactly I diverged from the team that not only isn't my team anymore, but is so unrecognizable to me that it's hard for me even to remember a time where I was a reliable and consistent Democratic voter and proudly labeled myself with the term progressive. But I did. And I would say that's because back when my political worldview originally shaped, back in the early to mid 2000s when I was a teenager, there were still areas of legal inequality that in my mind needed to be ironed out. The issue of marriage equality was a big one for me at the time. I didn't think it was right for the government to regulate domestic arrangements between consenting adults, and I still don't think that's right today. The Supreme Court eventually agreed, and I certainly do think there's a debate there about whether the court got that decision right as a constitutional matter. But in terms of outcome, I thought the decision was a good thing at the time, and I'm still glad that's the legal standard under which we operate today. The divergence between me and the modern progressive is perfectly illustrated by that court decision in 2015. To me, there is a such thing as sufficient progress. There is an end to progressive aspirations, and that end is legal equality. To the extent the government has a degree of control over all of our individual liberties, that authority should be exercised evenly and equally, such that everyone is playing by the same rules, everyone enjoys equality of opportunity, and freedom is maximized. And once that legal equality is achieved, that's where the former progressive in me says that's enough progress. Wipe our hands, pat on the back, job well done, let's all move on with our lives. But that's not where the modern progressive stopped. The modern progressive sees legal equality and says not good enough. We have to make sure everyone has the correct opinion too, and this is where they lost me. Generally speaking, I think you should have the right to live your life as you see fit so long as you aren't harming others. But you don't have the right to have everyone think you're cool. The former is a philosophy about liberating the individual. The latter is a mutated philosophy about controlling the individual. The analogy I use also comes from my youth, back when I had 2 healthy ankles and I'd skateboard every day, and I always hated rollerbladers. You have a right to rollerblade, you aren't harming me, but you don't have a right to my opinion about rollerblading, and you look like a damn idiot when you're doing it. But more and more progressives are treating my rollerblading opinion as a problem, something to be fixed or potentially even controlled until I adopt the correct opinion. Progress Bot says rollerblading is an amazing combination of athleticism and art and is not at all fruity in any way. I just can't say it and have it be natural. The only thing I appreciate about rollerblading is the top tier crash footage. We saw progressives diagnose this same alleged problem recently with the hoax hijab cutting story in Toronto that I covered last video. In this Toronto Star editorial, our author cites public opinion polling as evidence of Islamophobia. She writes, Canada, as one of the world's most fortunate countries, offers political stability, potential for comfortable lifestyles, and a shot at equality. This does not make it bereft of identity-based hatred, prejudice, and discrimination, or in this context, Islamophobia. An Ontario Human Rights Commission survey last year found that more people reported harboring very negative feelings about Muslims than any other group. An Angus Reid poll last year showed 46% of Canadians surveyed perceived the presence of Muslims as damaging to society. If you look at the poll itself, to me that seems like a slightly inaccurate portrayal. A plurality of Canadian poll respondents say they view the presence of Islam, the ideology, the religion, as damaging to society. The phrasing of this article implies they view the presence of Muslims as people as damaging, which isn't quite the same thing, but I'm splitting hairs here despite the broader issue, which is who the hell cares? That is not a problem. These poll respondents aren't saying they think Islam should be banned. They aren't advocating curtailing liberty or freedom for Muslim citizens at all. They're just saying they don't like the ideology. In the same way, I don't like rollerblading, and that is not something you can regulate or control without infringing on individuals' rights to their own thoughts and opinions. But who cares? GLAAD cares, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, who is out with a new report covered in the Queer Voices section over at the Huffington Post. God, the presumptuousness to think this type of authoritarian thought policing is the unanimous opinion of the gay community. Americans are becoming less comfortable with LGBTQ people, GLAAD report finds, reads the headline. The 2018 Accelerating Acceptance Report's results are alarming, advocates say. A new GLAAD survey unveiled Thursday found a swift and alarming drop in overall acceptance of LGBTQ people. It also recorded a significant increase in the number of LGBTQ people who say they've experienced discrimination on the basis of their sexuality or gender identity. And no surprise, it is, of course, all Trump's fault and for sure nothing to do with all these screechy activists and their never-ending list of demands and finger-pointing. When you take a look at the report itself, you'll see exactly the phenomenon I'm describing. Legal equality is now secondary in the minds of these activists to the real problem, which is other people's wrong opinions. What should actually be highlighted in the report is buried. Item 4, the last item in the report, finds support for equal rights is stable. In spite of the erosion in comfortability, the majority of non-LGBTQ Americans, 79%, support equal rights for the LGBTQ community. This stable and sizable majority is unchanged from the previous year. Instead, what's emphasized in this report is nonsense, like a significant decrease in comfort in personal situations, such as very small increases in poll respondents reporting discomfort with certain circumstances, like working with an LGBTQ person, or seeing a same-sex couple displaying affection in public, etc. Well, first off, these are all minorities of people reporting discomfort with these situations. And second off, these aren't even significant changes. The most sizable change is just a few cases of a 3% shift toward discomfort with certain situations compared to the previous year. That's within the margin of error of your typical public opinion poll. The next alleged problem the report identifies is 4% of people moving away from classifying themselves as allies. Those are respondents who are either very or somewhat comfortable in all situations, to detached supporters. These are respondents whose comfort level varies across situations. In other words, if you have any nuance to your opinions, that's going to be a problem. Your general support is not enough. It's got to be unqualified support of whatever I may do or say. Any individuality or autonomy on your part will be considered suspect. The only arguable problem I can see in this report is a survey result of more LGBTQ people reporting experiencing discrimination based on their gender identity or sexual orientation. But these are self-reported responses within an increasingly sensitive culture, and there's no clear definition here. Discrimination by whom? The government? If so, we can probably agree that's a problem. Or is it discrimination by me just not thinking you're cool? Sorry, that's my opinion, and you're not entitled to it. You have a right to rollerblade. You do not have a right to force me to think rollerblading is cool. And isn't that one of those things that makes America great fundamentally? The idea that you get to be you and I get to be me and we can each think what we want about each other and leave each other the hell alone. The foundational principle of the push for gay rights was people should be free to live the life that they choose. So how is it now that same lobby that sees other people living the life they choose and says, hey, those deviants, those defectors, they're a problem. We got to get a handle on them. How quickly a case for liberation can become a case for control. It's when that mutation happens that I tap my desk and I say, I'm out. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below and especially over on Twitter. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to come hang out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Okay, bye.